Imagine uma empresa gigante global com mais de 126 mil funcionários, onde os chefes estão aprendendo que eles não podem mais mandar e decidir tudo sozinhos. 300 gestores já passaram por esse treinamento, que é simplesmente desaprender o que é liderar. E outros 12 mil devem entrar nesse mesmo processo. À frente dessa grande transformação cultural está o Steven Baert. Ele é diretor global da Novartis e vai contar um pouquinho como é que foi esse processo e como tudo isso está acontecendo. Hello, Steven.
Hello.
It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, Stella.
Well, Steven, tell me where behind this unboss thing, how this idea started.
Well, I think we live in a world where through digital, the simple things get automated. The complicated things can be solved through machine learning, and the real value of the human brain, of human capital, is to address the complex situations. And we are in a business of reimagining medicine. We work on relentless innovation, but this is very complex. And so therefore, when you employ worldwide 110,000 people, you want to make sure you can tap into their expertise, into their knowledge. And so the time that the boss had the answer and that the team was just providing information to the boss is behind us. Today, we believe that the smartest brains and the people with the expertise are on the ground, and that the boss needs to be in support of those people so we can innovate and ultimately reimagine medicine and bring fantastic therapies to our patients.
And how is this work of convincing the bosses that they'll have to have all the answers now? How did you start to work with the people in practice?
It's not easy, that I can tell you. We repeatedly say there's only organizational change if there's individual change. And so that means that every leader, every manager in the company needs to learn how to lead again. They need to become much more self-aware of how they show up as a leader. They need to be much more vulnerable. They need to accept actually that they are not necessarily the smartest in the room, and that there are people in the room who will have ideas. They need to become more inclusive. So we had to really take a leader-led approach and rethink completely how every single leader in the company leads.
But for example, the leader must make a decision about a product or anything. Do you have a platform where the people from his team will say what they want? How does it work?
Yeah, first of all, unboss doesn't mean chaos or anarchy. The leader still needs to create a vision and set a direction in which way we want to go. But then what you say is very relevant. You want to make sure that there are constant feedback mechanisms, because the worst is that a leader would go off in a direction that doesn't make sense, or that the leader would think they have the solution and the team thinks differently. So again, in a world where digital solutions are available, we have now many platforms to give constant feedback to a leader. We use tools like Pigeonhole, where any associate can submit questions to the leadership, whether that's the Brazilian leadership or the global leadership. And then all other associates can start to vote whether they want to see that question being addressed. And on a regular basis, we have sessions with the global leadership team, our CEO, or the Brazilian leadership team, answering and addressing those questions. Every leader in this company gets twice a year feedback from their teams on how they are leading. We take 360 surveys on a regular basis. Our CEO, Vas, has taken last year 2 360-degree evaluations. 4 times a year we check in through a platform called Glint to see how the engagement, how the collaboration, how the speak up, how the growth opportunities are for our associates. Because if you're not constantly checking in, you don't get a feeling whether you're moving in the right direction.
Suppose a leader has a decision and his team is going to vote about this decision, and then he answers. What happens next?
Yeah, so in this specific case, so for Pigeonhole, an answer also gets evaluated, because if the leader kind of avoids addressing the real underlying question or sentiment, people will vote whether it was a good answer or a bad answer. And so we get reports on so many questions submitted, favorability ratings on the answer.
Maybe he has to answer again.
Well, next time the question will actually come back, you will see that. But for me, most important is that beyond the digital tools, the real discussions take place in the room. And even if you look at big breakthrough thinking versus big failures, it always comes back to the psychological safety in the room. Because very often there is somebody who has an insight, and if that person doesn't feel safe to raise the hand and say, I disagree, or have we looked at an alternative way, if that conversation doesn't take place, bad decisions get made. And that's why in a world like ours, where it's all about innovation, you need to hear all the voices around the table.
And this psychological safety is very important.
Absolutely.
To build that trust.
Yeah.
It's a matter of trust.
Yeah. It also goes back to, in a world where machine learning will deal with the normal trajectory and predict the normal trend, human judgment is the one that will change the curve. And so if you want to change the curve, you need to free up the human judgment in the room. And therefore, you will often get it wrong. And if people are holding back or staying quiet out of fear of being told off or looking stupid or not being smart enough, then you kill all innovation.
They are afraid of their bosses.
Yes, absolutely.
more probably.
Hence, unboss. So you flip the pyramid. The boss is in support of the team and not the team in support of the boss.
And what are the results you get from this program?
It's very exciting, actually. It's early days, so we haven't achieved worldwide sustained success. But if you look at Novartis's results, we just announced our worldwide results. We grew 9% our bottom line, 9% our top line, 17% our bottom line. That was the strongest growth for the company in a long time. We had 6 new medicines approved, and as such we're the strongest innovator in the industry. We see a similar pattern here in Brazil, where our performance is significantly better. So when you ask about the results, I will always initially take you back to why we're doing this. We think it leads to better business performance. We think it leads to better innovation. It will lead to more ethical decision making. We think it's just a better way of doing work. Now, specifically, what we are doing is it's a data-driven approach. So we do correlations between business performance, the engagement of the team, and the feedback scores of the leader. And we correlate that. And you do see that leaders that get favorable feedback outperform the rest of the organization only by 3%. But when you then look at a manager who gets low scores, you see that they underperform the average of the company anywhere between 18 and 23%. So you see that leaders create a culture, but bad, toxic leaders will sink a culture. And if, as a company, you don't act on those toxic leaders, you are looking at a ticking time bomb in terms of your performance, in terms of your engagement. So it's very important to have indeed a data-driven insight of how are the leaders driving the engagement and the speak up in their organization.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
E você continua acompanhando aqui no Carreira em Destaque entrevistas com os principais gestores e lideranças da área de recursos humanos.